Good morning, everyone. Welcome to class today on Sunday morning, here with Guy Finley. If you're new to our experience here in Merlin, Oregon, we have a class here and we have a class online. And we're really glad that you've taken the time to join us today. The format today, Guy will speak for about an hour. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for about a half an hour or more of questions and answers. And Guy, you're getting your mic on? John has a sign there. Okay. Anyway, he's trying his best back there. So, we're back. And we're going to get started here in just a minute. If you have a cell phone in the room, please make sure it's turned off. And at home, probably a lot of you are watching this on your cell phone, so don't turn them off. That probably wouldn't work. So our talk title today is How to Win at Life Without Really Trying. And here's today's key lesson. I'll read it twice. Here's the truth that helps set you free, but only as you agree to see its divine law at work within you. Real life never asks for one thing more than what it's already given to you in that very same moment to make good on its request. Here's the truth that helps set you free, but only as you agree to see its divine law at work within you. Real life never asks for one thing more than what it's already given to you in that very same moment to make good on its request.
Good morning. How to win at life without really trying. I'll be in Florida in February giving a talk or two, and this is going to be one of the talk titles. I'll examine it from a different area, but what is the one thing that every human being you know in one way or another is trying to do and to be? What is everyone trying to be? Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I want to be a winner. How many of you want to be a winner? Those of you that didn't raise your hand have just given up, I guess. Yeah. All right. This isn't a trick question. What is a winner? What is a winner? Come on, you all want to be a winner. Roger, you don't look like a winner, but maybe you'll surprise me. Basically, a winner is someone who, by hook or crook, and it usually is by hook or crook, someone who gets what they want. And I am a winner if I have most of what I want, but I'm not quite a complete winner because I've yet to accomplish everything that I thought was needed, that I desired, to touch on the topic we've been looking at, in order to lend me this very delicate sense of self that anytime the wind blows counter to what it has imagined it requires, suddenly fills me with some kind of fear, and then I've got to go protect what I've won. You want to know the real definition of freedom? That's what we're going to look at together today. It's to never feel the pain and fear of wanting to protect anything again as long as you live, other than as needed, the ones that you love. And there's a caveat to that. Because what you call protecting the ones you love is punishing them with what you want from them And you can't love someone if you want something from them in the truest sense of the word. Do you think to yourself that you know what it means to be a winner? Do you walk out? This is actually, you can buy books now. Books that sell a lot more than mine. How to be a winner. Just look in the mirror. Get over the shock of what you see at first. And then talk to yourself. Tell yourself everything you need to do that you haven't done yet. Imagine all that's required to get past the parts of you that have been pulling you down. And then when you're done with all that, go eat and drink and drug yourself into oblivion and then get started on your day. Essentially, what I want to share with you today is very simple and very liberating if you can hear it. But there's a difficulty that we'll look at on the way to this true idea of what it means to be a winner. And I'll give you my definition of what a winner is. It's someone who leaves the moment that he entered into or that she entered into with a completely new understanding that they exit that moment with, an understanding that they didn't have coming in and an understanding they now have grasped to some extent coming out. Anything less than that is to have lost the moment. Lose the moment, lose what the moment has brought. Lose what the moment has brought, lose the opportunity to discover that you are in relationship with something timeless that wants to help you see what it never stops giving you. And what that never stops giving you is the understanding that in every single moment, as the key lesson said, you already have what you need to exit that moment a different order of human being. Anything short of that is to have missed the purpose of your life. So here's a disciple of some kind, somewhere you can choose the location you want. Mallorca, for example. What island is it? I never can say it. The Cook Islands. And the disciple comes to the master and says, you know what, I gotta go. You do. And why is that you gotta go? He said, I've been here for 818 years, and I haven't learned it. He corrects himself about to say it. I haven't learned anything. I mean, I thought I'd learned something, and then, Bill does this, or Mike, or Sherry, or Willie, they do things, and I suddenly I realized not only I'm not learning, I'm not changing. The truth is, in some ways, I feel worse off. Teacher says, well, do you know why you feel worse off? Why you're not learning? It's because I'm stupid, apparently. No, that's not it. He says, why? I said, because you're spending your whole life trying to be everyone other than yourself. That's why. You want the strength of Bill. You want Paul's cool. You want Michael's social skills. You want Denise's adaptability. And every day, without knowing it, depending on the conditions that you find yourself in, you find yourself needing to be like someone you imagine that if you could be like them, you'd be able to get through that moment. You'd have their strength, their wisdom, their cool, their adaptability. Then you would be like them, and then you would be free like them, except for one thing. Student, what's that? They don't have what they pretend to be either. Well, what am I going to do? He said, I can see some of what you've said is true. Do you know that you can't be in conflict with any moment, whatever its nature, without something in you that had decided before that moment came what you need from any moment that threatens what you've imagined yourself to be? You can't. Conflict with life is born out of having imagined a life without conflict. Conflict with life is born out of having imagined a life without conflict. And the very fact of imagining a time, a place, some persona that you're finally going to get to when you get rid of everything that's dragging you down, that at last you'll be delivered into this promised land that is nothing more than a kingdom created by imagination, whose entrance into you and your agreement to it ensures that you remain a slave, not of who you are, but a slave of who you've imagined yourself as needing to be. Not only is it hell to want to be like someone else, but the struggle to do so, to be so, doubles down on the pain of that unseen identification. How many of you have hellish moments in your day? Get your hands up. To be a human being, unfortunately, as we are right now, it's like living with 10,000 little demons and pitchforks. Every bit of news, every change in the weather, every suggestion that this should be that way, or opportunity for you to take a chance and then not want to do it. Every last one of those moments, just like that. And then in the strangest of all contradictions, the pain in the process of looking at who I should be or ought to be, the conflict between what I am in that moment and what I've imagined myself to be, proves to me that I need to be more of what I've imagined, not to see that the conflict is because I've imagined myself and then try to imitate myself into being that person. Can you see it? Bring up the second key lesson, please. Unconscious imitation, with its inherent identification, always creates useless suffering. Unconscious imitation with its inherent identification always creates useless suffering. Name something that you suffer over. Anybody, just you can name anything. Anybody want to pull something out? John. Someone doesn't have the same opinion I do. Deborah. John doesn't do what I want him to do. And John is just the tip of the iceberg. John. Oh, I'm an inadequate human being. So we could just go through this, but we're not going to go through all that. What's at the root of all that? Comparison. At the root of all of it, comparison. And what's at the root of comparison? What's at the root of comparison? Please, anybody? This moment isn't measuring up. You're not measuring up. I'm not measuring up to exactly what I know I'm supposed to be or exactly what I know you're supposed to be. And where do I get this icon from heaven that measures everything and everything comes up short? Where do I get this? Who made this icon? Anybody want to venture a guess? The unseen problem and source of our pain is that our mind, our life, has been organized by a nature that has no identity outside of the images it imitates to provide it a sense of being free. This is unimaginable to most of us, because do you not think you are, I made fire, I am the one who has fashioned who and what it is that I'm supposed to be, don't you? It's impossible that the whole of my mind has been organized by something that has no identity. It's not mine. If something organizes my life and it's outside of me, did I organize my life? No. Your life has been organized by a nature that literally doesn't exist outside of the resistance or the attraction it has to what it's imagined it needs to do and to be. You take away what it's imagined to do and be, that nature has no authority. But the problem is our present state of sense of self, entirely dependent upon that relationship that's always looking out, deciding this is safe. No. That's not safe. I can't do that. This will be great. No. Please don't go there. So vacillation from want, not want, endlessly, and believing that the pain, the struggle inherent in those opposites as they back and forth batter each other proves that I am as I've imagined myself to be. And more importantly, that the fear I feel every moment that starts to take place proves that I have something vital that needs to be protected. That I am someone who needs to be protected. Let that sink in for a second. God did not make the spirit of fear. So here I am, and I believe that I am someone who needs at all costs to ensure that you, they, this, and them continues to measure up and match as perfectly as possible what I have decided, what has organized my life into this image that I don't even know. And not just one image. You want to know what legion is? Legion is the relationship between a fractured identity, a fractured mind, and all of the individual things that it is imagined it requires to make it whole, so that it never stops loving one and despising the other. That's what legion is. It never stops loving one, this image, and despising anything that comes along and challenges the identity it is surreptitiously taken on. Please? Now, can you be a true individual and live from a mind that believes your individuality depends upon some image you're identified with? No. If I live like that, what am I? I'm someone whose identity is as vicarious as is the direction of the wind in any given moment, because it moves my attention in the direction it's blowing. And because I want to know what's moving me, I look back to see what has put my attention there. And there's always some kind of conflict between the condition and the sense of myself that it creates. And then that sense of self struggles with the condition, believing it's outside of itself. The condition is not outside of itself. So what is that nature struggling with? What is that nature in conflict with? Itself. Itself. Individuality is about being. Identification is about becoming. Individuality is about being. Identification doesn't exist without the idea of becoming. Being, which is what we're going to talk about now and today, is an absolute timeless state. Most of us know nothing at all about being, save for those moments, by some grace, we're outside, we're doing something, and we are overwhelmed with this sudden marriage between the observer and the observed, and there is a silent beauty, a silent harmony, a silent unity, and in that moment, all of a sudden, I no longer exist as someone apart from what I'm seeing. What I am seeing and who I am is a unity, and there is no fear in love. Unity is love. So individuality, timeless, whereas becoming is what? What is the nature of becoming? Come on. What is the nature of becoming? First of all, is there such thing as becoming without not wanting to be what I am in the moment? So becoming only exists because that nature that is incomplete, ceaselessly seeking a way to find a way to make itself whole, what does that nature do? It desires, what does it desire? Images. And the images it desires, where does it get them from? Why would I desire to be someone who should be like this or who ought not be like that? Outside of the fact that my mind at some point, somewhere along the line, looked at Bill, Willie, Sam, or Mary and said, now that's how I need to be. That would be good. And like some kind of strange hermit crab attaching all kinds of crud to this self, it gloms onto these images. Because when you take the image of how you could be free or how one day you will be when all of this finally works out, when you glom onto that image and you become what? Attached to it. So in this instance that I glom onto the image, I don't know I did. It was pleasurable. It was very tempting to think of myself as one day getting past all of this pain when I finally do what? Get a hold of what I've imagined. And when I get hold of what I've imagined, I think that I've actually got my hands on something that's going to free me, when the truth is the moment that you imagine something that you're going to imitate at some point in time, you have picked up the fear of anything that threatens that image. So my entire sense of self lives without knowing it, in a world that on one hand it keeps trying to create so it can finally be free, and the very world it creates becomes my captivity because I'm identified with every image, everything I've imitated that has organized my life. You don't know how deep this runs. Your mind, my mind, and I'll show all this to you in great depth as we go along. Not today, there's not time. But I can tell you this. We are a bundle of painful, unconscious expectations. Only I don't know I'm a bundle of unconscious, painful expectations until when? Until the condition that I expected doesn't work out as I expected it. And I could be talking about anything from a small personal relationship to my life itself. God, I wasn't supposed to. How many of you ever thought this? Maybe you're not old enough yet. I don't think I was supposed to wind up like this. This isn't at all how I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to wear a cape and have a lot of bullet deflecting bracelets and just march right on through. I was never going anywhere other than higher and higher and higher. And then suddenly, now what's going to happen? Look at me. So this creation that has this imitative life that my mind has organized itself around, ostensibly to free me, turns out to be the source of all of my fear. Yes or no? Nice deep breath. You have to see it because I can't convince you of it. We've lived so long with the fear of failure that we don't even suspect there's something wrong with the fear anymore. It's one day, please God, one day you'll be doing so, you'll be wanting, and you go, oh my God, that's why I'm rushing? Oh my God, that's why my mind won't take itself off of that situation? Because inherent in all of that conflict is this idea that somehow if you, they, this or them, including myself, if they don't see me as I've imagined myself needing to be seen, because I need to see myself that way, you can't separate them. If that doesn't happen, not only am I inadequate, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life sweeping the floor someplace because nothing is ever going to be how it's supposed to be. And what is the pain in that moment? Is the pain in that moment the way that you are in that moment? Or is the pain in that moment because of what you don't want to be in that moment, because you don't want to see in that moment the way you actually are? So what is the source of that fear? We've been talking about it. You have to see it. Again, all these talks are seeds. I've always never called myself a teacher. I've always called myself a shower. I'm going to switch it around. I'm going to become a sower of seed. It's a much better description for what I'm given to do. It's all I'm given to do, sow seeds. As seeds are sown into me, so I sow them out. What is the nature of this, the actual source of this fear? How many of you understand? I'm free, I can do this. What about the no? No, can't, no. Too painful, no, not enough, no. Like even just get out of bed. What is the source of that? This vacuous, unconscious nature is like a vacuum cleaner for any image that allows it to transcend its own fear. Just suck up that image. It already has, by its nature, which is not yours or mine alone, but by this body of knowledge that has been so vastly increased over time, not because the knowledge in itself has any value at all. It's basically useless. But in that knowledge are all of these ideas and hopes and beliefs, images. Every hope and belief is an image of a time to come when you won't suffer yourself anymore. So this nature constantly attracted to one image after another. You watch what happens when you run into a moment you don't want. Have you watched enough to see it? Not just because I'm asking you. What happens when I run into something, I run into something, goes no. What happens to me? Come on, what happens? Anybody? Well, yes, of course, instantaneous resistance. And of course, we understand the resistance is because something that I have imagined and identified with is threatened. But what happens when what I've imagined and identified with is threatened? How do I get through those moments? A new image. That's all. Just another thought. Conveniently provided by the same nature that ran into the moment that it prepared for itself so its pain could drive it to find a new false solution. Just like that, another image. And the minute the image is there, in fact, this is important to understand, the image itself has no authority. You are free. There is the right use of imagination. I'm describing everything that's wrong with it right now. The image appears, and the image already has associated with it, like a tree with roots, all of these associations connected to pleasures or possibilities inherent in the image. So when I run into something that says, no, my mind goes, well, yep, there it is. Go there, do this, say that, run here. That's what it does. And the minute that it has the new image, which is always pumped full of the pleasure of a better time to come, yes or no? The minute it's pumped full of that, it's off and running again. It has the pleasure it wants because now it has escaped the moment it doesn't, failing to see that the moment it ran into that it didn't want was itself a creation of itself in some time just before that, where it had to imagine another way to get through a moment. What if you knew? What if you knew that you're not on this planet to get through moments you don't want? What if you knew you're not here to avoid seeing things that you wish you didn't have to see in yourself or others? Isn't every judgment that comes to your mind, doesn't every one of them begin with a summary resistance and refusal to experience who and what you are when you see what you don't want to see? Yes or no? The mind always falls back into the last thing it fell into. The blind shall lead the blind, and both shall fall into a pit. You because you don't understand yet, you think you understand the fall of mankind, the fall of humanity. You think it was some singular event that somehow or other all of that has to be made up for. Every single time that you fall into another image in order to rescue yourself from something that you think is too great for you to deal with as you are, you have fallen again and fallen again and fallen again. Bring up the third key lesson, please. We have been deeply conditioned that we are somehow special. God's gift to humanity. Stop there. I know in your false pride, you would never say it, but how many of you suspect that given the way you behave, not here, because you're always trying to be something very spiritual, are you not God's gift to humanity? My mother used to say that to me. She said, "You think you're God's gift, don't you?" I go, "Well, maybe." I didn't know any better. I knew she was being sarcastic, but I thought it was beside the point. I'm God's gift. How do I know? How do you know you're God's gift to humanity? How do you know it? Because anything that doesn't give me what God wants to give me makes you my enemy, including any moment. No, God's gift to humanity. And because we've become identified with these social, cultural, even religious beliefs about what makes us so distinctive, we live in a constant, almost hidden, often hidden fear of any circumstance that proves this image of ourselves as untrue. And then the pain of resisting anything that doesn't match how we've imagined it to be proves that the fault lies outside of us, even with God. God must have forgotten that he made me his gift to humanity. I know that you don't see it because it vacillates so often. Do you ever wonder why people don't want to be with you? Come on, honestly. Don't you think to yourself, everybody should want to spend time with me? I don't want to spend time with anybody myself. But, I mean, come on. Right, Babs? Yeah. It's unimaginable. Do you not judge people who don't see you in favorable terms? Yes or no? Here's the key question. Let's bring it up, please. Read along with me. Is it possible to avoid the experience of yourself, to not want to see yourself as you are in any given moment, and be true to yourself at the same time? Let's look at it again. Is it possible to avoid the experience of yourself? Now let's stop for a second. What does it mean to avoid the experience of myself? Well, if I blame the pain of the moment on you, I'm certainly not experiencing myself as I am in that moment. I believe I've been organized from the outside in that you're responsible for my suffering. So I wouldn't have this experience unless it was for you, failing to see that the whole mind has been organized in such a divided way that the sense of myself that I want depends upon everyone seeing me the way I want to be seen. True or not? So to not want to see myself in any given moment, I believe proves that I am everything that I don't want to see in that moment. Can I be true to myself and not want to see myself? So if I want to be true to myself, some of the things I'm going to have to see include the fact. Take a nice deep breath. We're making a transition. I can't possibly have the smallest hope to be myself, to realize the truth of myself as it is being given in any given moment, that hope is out of reach as long as I am unwilling to see myself as I am in that moment. Stop. Please. If I see in my mind's eye someone to blame, if I see in my mind's eye something to judge, am I seeing myself as I am in that moment, or has myself been given something to see that justifies the experience it doesn't want of itself? Please? This is all I'm getting at. How instantaneously the mind is fractured. It's already fractured. But how instantaneously this mind gravitates to looking at that which justifies or validates the pain that it's in, instead of recognizing in that moment the reason it's in that pain is because it's always looking at something or someone that it has imitated and believes it must have or be in order to be without that pain, a pain that doesn't exist without the fracture. Without the instantaneous temptation to let my mind wander anywhere other than where it needs to be, which is with the nature of this experience as I am. And that's where the rubber meets the road, because you see, the nature of this experience as I am, it's too much. I would have never thought it. I'm too much for myself. Too much for who? Too much for who? Do you understand what we're drilling down? Too much for this identification that sits inside of this nature that has looked at what it doesn't want to go through because it isn't who I should be, and then avoiding who I should be to run from the possibility of discovering that in that very moment I'm being given the opportunity to see, A, that isn't who I am. B, that what I am is created to transcend all of the imitation that it has adapted over time. And in shedding this imitative life, to come upon an individuality, an undivided self that is the beginning and the end of all experience in every split second. That doesn't need the continuity. See, you fear the continuity of your fear when you try to escape what you're afraid of. You fear the continuity of your fear when you try to escape what you're afraid of. What should I do? All I know to do is to avoid seeing myself as I am. It's why I don't come up and talk. It's why I don't do most of what I don't do. I don't want to go past any threshold, please. I don't want to go past any threshold of suffering that I haven't already imagined an out from and way to imitate myself free. You don't understand what your true nature is at all. Because if you did, you would stop trying to escape the moment of revelation and recognize I keep trying to prove to myself that I'm something other than I don't want to be. Say it with me. I keep trying to prove to myself that I'm someone other than I don't want to be. Holy mother of pearl. How can I prove to myself that I don't want to be someone other than I don't want to be? Or is the very attempt to escape what I don't want to be the continuation of a nature that's terrified of anything that challenged what it believes it is? Are we connecting here? And the more that we struggle the way that we do, proves exactly the opposite and imprisons me. You go outside, as I often talk about. I see another beautiful, what season are we in? Fall. Another beautiful fall day in Michigan. Another beautiful day. On a clear night, I take in the depth of what I see above me. Why am I drawn to those things? Why do I like that waterfall? Because when I'm fully present to what is being moved in me, I realize that who and what I am is not separate from that movement. That in the truest sense of the word, that peace lives within a certain order of love that allows an individual to recognize that to whatever extent it's true, I am what I see. Now that doesn't mean I am the waterfall, but it means that the principle, the nature of the waterfall, that everything that is given to perceive in that moment cannot be separated from the perception of it. So perceiver and perceived are one thing. In that is peace. Why? Because no image is required. There's nothing to imitate. But lots of times you go someplace and you might even see something like that, and then your mind says, I want a waterfall. Doesn't it? I want to feel like that. You see people and they're getting attention that you're not getting. Doesn't that drive you crazy? I want attention like that. I want to be numero uno. Numero zero. I want to be number one. So in order to be number one, I look and I go, well, then, you know what? I need to be more like that. And the minute that you want to be more like what you imagine makes you more, you are automatically reduced on the spot one more time. And then the continuity of this reduction that this mind does in order to bring about a more fervent sense of self, the more it's reduced, the more it imagines. Do you see the circle? So, we understand to some extent that we fail, to use those words, every time that we try to free ourselves through what we imagined and then imitate will bring an end to our sense of being alone, lost, incomplete, whatever it is that you fancy. If that's what it means to lock myself up, or more accurately, to agree to be locked up in a mind that is forever trying to be what it imagines it needs to be, what's the solution if everything we're looked at is true? Anybody? No? Again, you don't see it. The minute that you want to be anything other than you are in the moment you're in, you believe it's because you have failed coming into that moment. The moment you want to be anything other than you are given to see and to be in that moment, in that very moment that the mind divides itself and seeks some kind of consolation for the sense of being inadequate or not enough and unable to deal with whatever that moment is, in that same exact moment, you have failed to be who and what you are. Our sense of who and what I am is always connected to who and what I need to become, or who and what I need to escape, isn't it? So that our nature is fractured into time. There is the past that I don't know I take with me as a prison that never stops measuring myself in the present moment according to what my mind projects might happen if I don't act or become this way. So that I am caught in between an invisible imagined crucible where the past forever comparing what I should do and be to what I imagine I need to do and be so that I can get through this moment. You're not here to get through the moment. You're here to let the moment help you discover the truth of yourself. not to get, but to let. There's a big difference, isn't there? The problem for us is this. My identity is largely derived from imagination. I don't think my identity is largely derived from imagination, but I can realize to some extent it's true anytime what I've imagined meets something that says, no, it's not true. But my default action in any unwanted moment is to let my imagination provide for me a path into the future where the pain won't be the way it is now. And I believe that that path is some kind of extension from my true nature, when if you could do it, and you must, you would see that path started in the past. Didn't it? Are you able, I have to look at you to decide whether or not the people who are watching us you're supposed to be somewhat advanced. No, you are. Can you not see it? Here's a moment I'm in pain. Someone's asked me, something said, try this. No, I can't, I won't. I'm not adequate, I won't make it. I don't understand, I'm confused. And in that moment, the mind, by default, looks to what it must do to escape that moment. And it can't escape the moment unless it creates a moment in some image of its own. And we believe that we can get to that place by identifying with it, failing to see that what I'm looking at in the time to come is a line in time that began back 1,000 million years ago with the first human being who ever decided that as he was, having fallen, they were inadequate to be free, failing to see that you were created free. But not free as an image, free as a state of discovery. Not free as an image, that's the problem. You believe you know what it means to be free, so you're always running from any sense of captivity. Failing to realize that the minute you run from anything that you fear as a captive, making you a captive, you're a captive of the mind that believes it can escape its own conflict. And it can't. Do you know why these teachings aren't popular? It's not because of me. Christ's teachings weren't popular. Do you need anybody to prove that to you? They're popular now because they have been so diluted and made into some time to come when everything's going to be gorgeous, as with every religion. But the root of the religion, the root of all religion was always negation. Always. Always. Why negation? Because we are identified with something that doesn't exist. The fallen man, the fallen woman, the idea that knowledge one day will save me from the knowledge of what I agreed to go through the last time. So it is the abnegation of this consciousness that lives in imagination, not the confirmation of what it imagines as the route to realizing itself as being free. And the abnegation of that moment where, again, I ask you, yes or no, you know it's going to happen. Here, I don't want this, I don't like this, well, I don't know what to do with this. All I know in that moment is to let my mind run untethered, off in the direction it runs, finding someone to blame, hating myself, wishing I were different, or promising that one day I'll finally get everything I need in order to change things. And that's been going on for a million years in this consciousness. And any human being who comes forth and says that is a dead end and only dead people walk that road, they are themselves crucified. Because humanity can't stand the idea of living anywhere other than in imagination. What do you think all this politics is about? You really believe somehow or other that finally someone's going to restore peace, prosperity, and all the rest of that. You're looking at a civilization wind down. And the proof it's winding down is it's becoming more and more aggravated and irritated, more and more laws, more and more conflict, more and more division, more and more power groups of individuals who believe they have the power to make everything right. And you are part of it. Every time you let your mind see something that brings up an experience you don't want, every single time that happens, you have gone back into imagination in order to create an imagined time where you won't be experiencing yourself. What you don't know is that the self you experience in that moment isn't you. That's what the whole work is about. One must lose their life to find it. To start discovering the peace that passes understanding dwells far away and above this unstable nature that is always identified with something it has imagined. It feels good, doesn't it, to imagine with a time to come? It's great. I know the temptation. I promise you I do. Maybe not the temptation of something huge like owning the Cook Islands and a big boat with someone else to take you. They're a little, like Eric said, a little boat. Like that makes a difference. Because you see, I'm not greedy. I just want a little boat to take me to my islands. That's priceless. What if you're made to be born now? You are. Not to find a life when it lasts, but to understand the true experience of being, which is what we're describing. The true experience of being has no searching in it. Isn't that what the mind does? First, it imagines someplace, a time, somewhere where it will be and get to, and it won't have the pain anymore. Isn't that what it does? And then once it's identified that and become attached to that image, then it has to go seek a way to make that happen. And the more it seeks a way to make that happen, the more it is set in that imagination as being unquestioned what I have to do and be. And the more that gets stronger, guess what else becomes stronger? Any resistance to anything that shows you another dream. In the experience of being, there's no separate sense of self. This is where it's difficult this is difficult to teach. There's no separate self, no separate sense of self in being. For us, what our sense of self is produced by separation. Please, do you see it? I think I'm one with what I've imagined. I think I'm one with the thought that promises to release me from this torment of inadequacy. But the moment that the mind has taken thought, it is then attached to and identified to the image it's taken as being itself. So it isn't unified, it just has a momentary sense of peace produced by a time to come when it won't have to suffer itself anymore. I better get to the end. Nice deep breath. We're trying just to see something, yes? Always. So there's the experience of being. You remember our exercise on the 4 dimensions? Remember we said, do it while I'm sitting here so you can come back into the room. I look out, and whether I understand it or not, when I'm looking out, we covered one eye so you could experience the difference. I look out, I'm in 2 dimensions. But if I come back into myself, I'm aware of myself at the same time that I look out. Suddenly there's a completely different field of awareness, isn't there? That field of awareness is being. Being is a field of awareness, not an individual who claims to be aware. Being is a field. And the way you know that being is a field is because all beings are part of that field. And when you are in that field, you cannot hurt other beings in that field because your pain, their pain, becomes so clear to you. So the point is this, that there's this experience of being, which we said is what? We're not saying it's painless. That's the problem. You're looking for painlessness. No, to be is to be present to everything that is pouring into. How God does it, I don't know. This thing called the soul that has brought forward with it what it has brought forward, needing to be revealed and released, perfected by the grace. And then there's the experience of that which is acting on it and showing me what? My possibilities in that moment. See, you have this idea of finally fulfilling your possibility. Yes or no? If you play golf, you're tormented by that idea. I'm going to perfect this possibility. There is no perfection of possibility apart from participating in the moment where what is possible is revealed in its limitation and at the same time in its release from it. That's what possibility is. It is a living form of intelligence, of freedom. Stop trying to win. How's that for a popular message? Well, I know the talk title was How to Win at Life Without Really Trying. I'm describing it to you now. You win at life without really trying because if you understand what I've said, you don't have to try to win at life. Life has already won the battle for you. It is done. It is done every moment. But I can't just say to myself, it's done. I'm going to have to get in there and see that it's done. And the only place to see that it's been done is within the field in which it is being done, perfected, and then repeat. To see something new, deeper, truer. You want to know what joy in life is? It isn't bouncing around full of good vibrations. Joy in life is your realization that you are part of a life that never ends. And that includes an understanding about that life that transcends even the intellect that can grasp the idea. Joy is understanding there's actually another level of mind. Because even the smallest intuition of another order of mind introduces you to the idea that your life isn't your mind alone. And then there's the joy of making the transition between exchanging what you have called your mind, your imagery, your life, exchanging all of that just for a moment of being in the other mind where no fear dwells. And because no fear dwells there, you know the taste of fear produced by a mind that's always imagining and identifying with its own images. Stop trying to win. Start working consciously to deal with what you're given to see. Stop trying to win. How many of you always want to win? Isn't it weird? You argue with yourself to win. Can you win an argument with yourself? Anybody? Chris? I can't win an argument with that. Well, why am I arguing? Are you not arguing when you're bouncing stuff back and forth? You call, I'm trying to get everything settled. No, you're trying to get it's trying to get a more definitive sense of self in that struggle. So the real winning isn't to win the struggle in a mind that's set against itself. The real struggle is to see the mind is set against itself and to set the struggle down and let what is intended to take place in you unfold so that you're freer and freer and freer because you realize that who and what you are has nothing to do with what you're trying to fix. Stop struggling to do the impossible. Who has a new definition of what the struggle to do the impossible is? Anybody? What is the struggle to do the impossible? To avoid seeing myself as I am? That's the impossible. But you say, to be as I am, that's impossible. You have to decide which is which, don't you? To realize that this is the best part to me. Stop trying to do the impossible. Stop struggling to avoid seeing yourself as you are, and to realize that you are already free to be who and what you alone are created to change. Already free to be. Already free to be. Free to be what? Who and what you alone. And this is the unbelievable thing. You know, each and every one of us is kind of a cacophonous, entropic, chaotic state of different elements that have been coalesced from light into something manifested as flesh, mind. And all of that has come in, as we've talked about 1,000 times, by the nature of the fact that it is a creation, means it relies upon that which keeps it alive, that which completes it from moment to moment. In scale, I've said this 1,000 times, you know nature never stops completing what is incomplete in herself. So that the relationship between the creator and the creation, as it moves through the cycle of itself, is the relationship, yin and yang, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, is this constant perfection. Now imagine a tree that goes, I don't want to be a tree. I want to be a vine. I want to grow grapes. What would happen to that tree? It would die. It would be cut off. You are cut off from the change that is meant to take place in you because you imagine the changes as that you want and don't want. There's no end to what you don't want to see as long as you remain identified with what you imagine you need to be. Be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Will you work in a new way to be true to yourself? Do you understand what it means to be true to yourself now? Somebody give me a quick definition of what it means to be true to myself in a moment where suddenly I'm filled with resistance and negative states. What would it mean to be true to myself? Pat said, want what life? No. To be true to yourself means I'm going to stay with myself. And that means I'm not going to run into an idea, a time, a place, another day, another possibility. I'm going to see all of that as the temptation and recognize that the temptation to complete myself hides from me the truth that I have already been completed and always will be completed by anything that reveals to me the need for change. Got it? Let's take a break, come back and have our dialogue.
Welcome back, everyone. We're ready to get started with our Q&A with Guy. And those of you online, if you're on GoToWebinar, you can speak directly to Guy. Just go into your chat box there and raise your hand by clicking your little hand icon, and you can come into the queue. So we encourage you, if you have a question or something that stirred your heart today, come on in and go ahead and talk to Guy. It helps everybody. So you can raise your hand at any time. Also, if you're on one of the other platforms, just write a question in the question box. We will be able to get to that as well. One quick thing before we get started is that Life of Learning Foundation is a nonprofit, a not-for-profit entity, and we do appreciate donations from many of you are already doing this. That's what keeps this work alive. But if you'd like to participate in that as well, you can do that at any time at guyfinley.org/donate. And if you go to that page also, if you aren't able to provide direct financial assistance, you can assist us in other ways that'll help us raise money for this work. So we appreciate all of that. Guy, did you want to say anything before we get started?
Nope.
All right, let me see move my thing around here. So if you have a question or want to speak with Guy, go ahead and raise your hand. Now's the time. And while people are thinking of doing that, I've got a couple questions here. We'll start with a question from Cam. In a recent talk, you said, what you call difficulties is really nothing other than a momentary divine intervention, something that has come to help you into another kind of level of being, another kind of flow. Is the other kind of flow taking action to change your situation, or accepting losses and not dwelling in them internally without thinking about them?
I think it was somewhere, I'm trying to pin it down in my mind as best I can. It's not that critical. But it was somewhere probably 1980, 1981, which is kind of trippy because that's before some people were born that might be listening. I had this one little kind of epiphany, a picture that came into my mind. And the picture that came into my mind is something that maybe many of you will have no idea, no relatable idea to it. But a long, long time ago, probably in the 1800s, I guess it was, before the advent of scuba tanks, divers would put on this immensely heavy suit, and then they would attach a helmet that weighed like 60, 70 pounds with this glass in front of it. And that helmet would be attached to a hose, and the hose would be attached on the deck to a pump. So that when you dove in the water and you go down 60, 80, 100, 200 feet, whatever it was, that you were breathing air that was coming to you from on the deck because there was a man or a couple people there sitting there working this big pump. And I had the thought, wouldn't it be great if a person realized that their life is never not being pumped into them by something above them? Because you see, that's the truth, but it has no place in our life. I'm the provider. The government's the provider. My family's the provider. My plans are the provider. I imagine provisions. And as the whole talk was intended to produce the image, the more dependent I am upon the things that I believe I am the provider of, the more I need to protect those things and the more I am in fear of losing them. So a person lives their whole life in fear because they've imagined a fearless life. So Cam, you say, I said in a recent talk, what you call difficulties is nothing other than a momentary divine intervention. The whole thing is a divine intervention. The whole thing. You can't draw a breath unless it's given to you to do. Your heart won't beat once unless it is prompted to do so. You have not a single thought or a true emotion pass through you that isn't the creation of an intersection of ceaselessly timeless forces intersecting that which is in time. Now, the nature of that ceaseless intersection, which is not intended to provide a path to escape or change what takes place, the purpose of that constant intersection, that constant giving of life, is so that one day, if it ever becomes possible for you, you realize, you know what? I think I should spend my time being aware of the fact that something is giving me this understanding right now. Something is pumping into me this light that allows me to realize what the true nature of my life is about. Then I have an initial relationship in which, yes, difficulties, yes, deliverance, yes, possibilities that are pleasurable, yes, terrible moments, all of those things unfold in that field. But the field doesn't change because I'm not losing my relationship with it, trying to change what takes place in that field. Then what you called, and I know this, what you look, nobody gets up and thinks that, first of all, you have to understand this. You actually spend all day long dreaming up difficulties for you to deal with tomorrow. That's it. Basically, that's human life. This law, that practice, this, that, because I'm so tired of having this pain of being locked into this body. Oh, God. Oh, I know. I'm never coming back here again. like you have a say in anything. You have a say in nothing. And everything you say to correct the understanding that you have a say in nothing creates a big nothing that you call yourself as you try to struggle with what you've imagined. So Cam, everything is an intervention. And the intervention, Cam, isn't in quotes to bring you into another level of being, because that's what we think. God's going to come in my life and everything's going to be a flow. Or I'm a terrible person because God isn't in my life and therefore I'm constantly dealing with the fear of loss. What if the condition isn't there to create an action, but a condition to help you understand what wants to act in that moment so you can understand something of the depth and breadth of your relationship with what's moving through you in that moment? Our mind just loves everything to stop. An image is an unconscious stop. Stop the world here because I got to get there. And there is no there. Everything's here. So, Cam, the choice might be, let it flow. I can see that all I'm going to do is interfere with this moment by taking thought and identifying with what needs to be so I don't have to suffer right now, because if I can just figure out how tomorrow will be, I'll just live tomorrow. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to live tomorrow. Not now. I'm going to live tomorrow because it's all worked out. Can't wait. What do you think all your excitement is about? It's not about being excited to live. It's excitement that is a sensory overload by a mind that has imagined an inevitable pleasure and then it's all pumped up about what's coming. You ought to know better than that by now, but of course I don't think you do yet. So it's not about everything's going to be a flow. It might be. And it's certainly not about trying to figure out, well, I just have to accept the way things are and all the rest of that. You don't ever have to accept your own negative state. You can see it. Seeing it changes it. Changing it changes the relationship you have with the moment you're in. Then you're not struggling to find a time in the future that belongs to the past. That's the best I can do, Cam. Hope that helps. Patricia's coming up.
Hi, my name is Patricia. This talk was exactly my last 24 hours. I had a trip. I was very excited to go see my daughter and to do some things that we really wanted to do together.
And a hurricane got in the way.
And then this hurricane's heading, it's scheduled to arrive the day I was. And I've been there during a hurricane, and the streets are flooded, you're stuck in the house, and the power goes off. And so anyway, but this is the interesting part. I was okay with it because, and the mind is so tricky, and it said I was being spiritual because I was really taking this well. But what it did, it snuck in the back, and it was actually imagining how the next week or the next week would be so much better. The sun will be out, and this will happen. And so it saved me and then told me I was being spiritual because I didn't fall into despair. So we got to be watchful.
You have to be watchful. That's exactly right.
Just an invitation, if you're online on GoToWebinar, you can, there's no one in the queue yet to talk to Guy, so come on. And obviously you guys here can come up at any time. But we do have one more written question, Guy. This comes from Greg. Greg asked, how can I stop second-guessing everything? Since I started this work, everything I do, I second-guess. It's torture. For example, I got a tattoo yesterday. My thoughts were, you shouldn't be doing this. Why are you doing this? I had a boxing match. Everything I do is followed by a paranoid question. Help.
I hope that you were listening to the talk, Greg. What is second guessing? Second guessing is conflict, isn't it? Yes? What is the nature of this conflict? Comparison. And what's being compared? Well, you know, and I'm just saying this now, I don't know Greg from Adam. Oh, quite literally. You know, I really want this tat. I want this tat. I think that's how they talk. I want this tat. Because if I might, and again, I don't know Greg, but if I get this tat, I might be sitting in a bar with a short sleeve shirt. Some girl, you see that tat. What an interesting tat you have. The better to see you with. Meaning that I want it for reasons that I've imagined will make me happier, more whole, more productive. Do you understand? You can take the tat for any idea imprinted in the mind, can't you? So I want that, but then on the other hand, my mother said only really like bad people get tats. Never get a tat. So I have in my mind, I want a tat, I don't want a tat. That's what they call a tit for a tat. It's never pure. I don't know if you've seen it or not. You have no pure moments. There's always some kind of question, some kind of torture, some kind of promise, some kind of fear. Every thought that you have, that you identify with, not practical thought, but every thought that you identify with is an extension of a nature that produced an image that thought represents, and I go to that image for what it will give me. Remember he said, why aren't I changing? Because you want to be strong like Bill, but you want to be calm like Sally. So that you live in an endless state of a mind that never stops comparing itself to the content of itself, and it will always find something to second guess itself about because the moment isn't pure. The whole of this work is about purification through negation, not purification through affirmation. Because the more you affirm, the more you have to protect your affirmation and the sense of self delivered from it. No, the whole of this purification. And in this instance, that's the beauty of it. I'm not even purifying myself. I catch a mind that thought it had a pure idea in pain because something challenged it. Now I want to go and find another idea. I want peace from second guessing myself. Can I find peace from second guessing myself by coming up and making another guess about what's required for that? Where does that peace live? In the actual experience of myself. You have to, I don't know how else to say it, I've said it 1,000 times. Little did I know so many years ago when I was constantly struggling that one day Mr. Howard would say to me, you know, Guy, you're just going to have to drive yourself crazy. I thought he was being literal. No, he meant it. You're just going to have to drive yourself crazy. Now, that doesn't sound like something that is good. Does that sound good to you? See, I thought he was saying, you're really God's gift to humanity. But you're just going to have to go through a few things to finalize it. No, he was saying, you are not your mind. You think one side of your mind is other than the other side it doesn't want. You think this guess is better than that guess. No, you are not your mind. You are not what talks to you. You are not what talks back to your mind. You are that which alone in a field can see there is something above and outside of that dialogue. It doesn't negate the dialogue as a necessity for practical purposes, but it relegates you to a relationship with it where you realize if I'm engaged in any struggle at all with my own mind, I've already lost the battle. And when at last you see that beyond the shadow of a doubt, no picture, no image, no identification, and you catch the temptation because the mind won't create an image without tempting you to identify with it. The image is the identification yet to be personified. And you see that. And it's, how about this, how about that, how about this? And here's what you are. You're a man who understands your life is being pumped into you and through you. You're there where you are, letting all of that go on, doing what you have to, letting go what you need to let go of, going in the direction you need to go in, but nothing with the idea that your actions are going to save you from who and what you are. You've already been saved from who and what you are. You just don't understand it yet. That's it. Wait, Terry's coming up, and there is a hand in the queue.
This is just short and sweet. My name is Terry. Just when he uses the word second guessing, you know, those kind of phrases, they have origins, right? And it just, I don't know, it just occurred to me, you know, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. The first is currently second, the second is first. So it's the second that is always guessing the meaning of the moment.
Yes. That's why they call second guessing. second is a guesser. Yeah.
We have Lori in the queue, so I'm going to unmute you, Lori, and you can unmute yourself. There you are.
There she is.
Hi.
Hi, Lori.
Hi. So I have a lot of feedback on how to avoid that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just.
Okay. That's better. I don't know. So I'm like sitting here and listening, and I think, sometimes the reason why I don't speak is there's really, just like you had said, there's really nothing to say. There's no question to ask when I see that I literally cannot fix crazy. And,
That's a good title. That's a good title for a book. You can't fix crazy.
Yeah. So, I can look at, like, even now I'm sitting in a like I'm sitting here, watching a football game by myself. And everybody's out living their lives. I'm living my life, but I carry this part of my mind that tells me I should be sad, scared, concerned, because I have a parent who lives in Florida who, I look at the weather and it's like, I hope she's okay. But, I don't like talk about it, but like I have a mom who has not made her, she doesn't seem to want a relationship with me, or my kids. And then I sit and I see that part of me that wants to feel sad, feel like a victim, I can't do anything right by her today because, I have all these, you know what I'm saying? Like I have to worry about her. How am I going to save her? It's like all these, and I'm sitting here going, and I'm still me.
Yeah.
The hurricane could carry her away, or she could be sitting there in the sun, and that it's only me putting all these constraints on me, and I don't know how to be. The thing with me is I could sit there and observe that part of me and that mind and say, this is how my mind is trying to control me. But at the same point, I sometimes could see how I block out being me or feeling joy because of that same mind.
Yeah. I can feel the conflict in you. And everybody I trust can understand to some extent. On one hand, here's a woman doesn't want to seem to have anything to do with me or my children. I don't know why, in quotes. And there's a part of me, if I'm honest, that has thought, well, maybe the hurricane will go ahead and take her. But then I have that thought, Jesus, what a terrible person I am that I have a thought like that. I mean, why would you wish ill on anyone, even people who wish ill on you? And then you can see, can't you, this, who was in the tar pit, what was the name of that character? Brer Rabbit and the tar pit, tar baby. Where do you think that those stories came from, those fairy tales? Who do you think the tar baby is? It's this mind. And who's Brer Rabbit? The part of me that thinks it's other than that mind and wants to take something from it or change it, and it's all the same nature. Now, one thing Lori said, and I want to really punctuate it a little bit. By the way, Lori, it's nice to hear from you. You can always just come on and say hi. We've known each other a pretty good time now. The mind always tells you when you're in a position like she's struggling with. It always says, well, I can sit and observe myself and watch the pain. But then it finds itself gravitating left or right, trying to find something to console itself with, either judging itself or making some plan to make some kind of consolation relationship between my mother and I. So there's a vacillation. Here's what you don't understand. And that's why I said you have to drive yourself crazy. You think that the pain you're in is never going to go away. If you knew that the pain only persisted as long as the depth and breadth of your resistance to that revelation of your nature, if you understood that's why it persists, you not wanting it, you not wanting the experience of yourself is the continuation of the self you don't want. You don't understand that because you don't stay with it long enough. At some point, when you see the futility of a time to come, when you see the conflict inherent in comparison, you'll have no choice but to mount the cross, because there is nothing else to be done with that nature. You can't save yourself. You can't save anyone else. But you can see by your willingness to drink from a cup that you can't stand because you won't hold it long enough to your lips, you can see that in fact it has been done for you. That the thing that you shun and avoid at all costs contains within that moment the energy you need to be liberated from that consciousness and see it for yourself. And in that moment, that line of time is done. That line of time is done. And when that line of time is done, so is the self that belongs to it. That belongs to it. Then everything changes. So Lori, as I've said to you a number of times, and you wouldn't be able to have this conversation with me if you didn't already understand it, put the seatbelt on. Dig in just a little bit to see what else you can see. You know for a fact that the vacillation is trying to escape feeling like a victim on the left or on the right, a victim of a condition I don't have control over, a victim of a relationship that I don't know what to do with, and that I keep trying to find some middle ground so that everything can be resolved. The resolution will never be in the relationship itself, but in that part of you that understands what has created that relationship, Lori. When you see that, it'll all start to get quiet, and you'll have new understanding about yourself, and by the way, the meaning of this experience of yourself. David's at the mic. Let's go home.
My name is David. I feel like I'm on the way to driving myself crazy. But I can go further.
5 more miles to go.
Yeah, at times, especially the closer I get to this microphone, from the difference between 150 meters to that front door to this microphone, everything just gets so mixed up. Crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know, David, what the struggle is? The same struggle for everybody. First of all, what a relief it would be to know that there isn't like 8 billion different struggles. There's one struggle. And you know what the struggle is? I'm going to save myself. I'm going to save myself. I have an intellect like no one else's. I'm as sensitive as the morning dew. My mind is impressively wide. I see. No. You can't save yourself. How else would you ever become aware of the need for salvation unless it was in proportion to seeing that all of your efforts to save yourself with your incredibly sharp intellect and your marvelous caricature is pointless in terms of what you want with your heart. When you drive yourself crazy and you finally set down the mind, you set down the need to save yourself from an imagined self. That's what negation is. That's what awakening is. Awakening isn't acquiring. It's not an acquisition. Awakening is the negation of a self that believes it has to add something to itself to be free.
Mm.
Hmm? Mm. Mm. Oh, go away.
My name is Heidi, and very much connected to what you two were talking about. There's a pretty strong savior mentality that runs through most of Heidi's conversations. And I was talking to my mother a couple days ago, and it was very interesting to attempt a conversation because she still lives in a religion that I saw the need to leave. And so when we talk, we reach a certain point where she's sharing something or I am about a struggle that either I'm in, she's in, or a friend is in. And she wants to hear the fix. And Heidi wants to give her the fix. And that is kind of the basis of our relationship. I tell you something, you fix it. I tell you something, you fix it. And whether it's medicine or knowledge. But then there's a point where it's enough. And then she makes this declaration. Well, everything is going to be better in the next life. And we have eternity to fix it. And I heard those words differently this time and didn't try to fix them and didn't try to change them and let it be that whatever part of me agrees to suffer and be on the cross now is not, I didn't give myself that wish or even that, I don't make myself do that, but I'm asked to do that. Heidi, can you just die to wanting this moment to be better now? And not imagine that your relationship with her will be better when she sees differently. Because that's all we're doing. She's imagining when I go to her way, the life is going to be better. And if I do the same thing, we're just back in that loop. There's no change. And I feel this connection to the idea that when an election happens, everything's going to be different. That's the same mentality. That's imagining another day where I'm not going to feel what I feel now. So I've really liked what you shared about agreeing to feel what's going on now. That's what we're given to do. Suffer today. Struggle today. That's real life. Imagining it's going to be better later, that's an imagined self and an imagined time to come, which never comes. And by the way, which is always strained about now. And so even though it's difficult to hear what you're saying, it is the ground of real life, like you said. It is the ground where we're being born in the moment. And it feels right that there would be the perception of pain in consciousness, that it wouldn't just be a blissful blur of pleasure. Feels right that it would be both. You would feel good and evil side by side, or good and bad, or you would feel the whole of creation. That's all.
Because you think you know why you suffer. You never know why you suffer. Because you think you know why you suffer, you never know why you suffer. When at last you stop thinking toward your suffering, which is always an attempt to negate the suffering you're in, then you will begin to understand suffering not as some stone in your shoe, but as the source of a new relationship in which that suffering has new meaning to you. When suffering takes on a new meaning to you because you've entered into a broader relationship with the life that entails that suffering, then you belong to a broader life, and that suffering serves something other than the uselessness of continuing the self that fears it.
Hello, my name is Ellen. So on the one hand, Ellen sees herself as God's gift to humanity and is always trying to prove that and keeps running into walls and having problems because of that.
You keep running into God's hand, the real hand.
The real hand.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's Ellen here. And then on the other hand, when she runs into things, she sees herself as she is, and then goes into this, she's the worst, she's the blight on humanity, and there's no hope for her, etc. So when you were answering Cam, I believe, just this understanding was there that Ellen, well, the being, the true being, isn't either of those.
Correct.
And this divine force that's always pumping life into something is in this being. And this being, it's so odd. There's an individual being, but it's not an individual.
Correct. 100%.
And so, I'm sorry, it doesn't even involve any other person.
Correct.
So all of these run-ins and relationships with other people, they're just part of, I don't even know how to say it.
They're
part of this Ellen nature, and there's this other nature that is evolving through all of those experiences, but Ellen is not in a position to judge that being because she doesn't understand it, and that is just what has to develop through experience, and Ellen has to suffer beside, just has to drive herself crazy. Yeah. And it's the judgments, it's this constant judgment that just keeps that struggle going. But it just is what it is.
It's okay. You've had a priceless epiphany. Stay with it. I think that's it. What am I going to say? Do your work. And let's go eat.